Hey everybody, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse, and you're watching Disruptive Investing News. So last Thursday, the world watched Starship and its Super Heavy booster attempt their first orbital test flight.
And as we talked about on Tesla Time News, if you believed the mass media headlines, then it was a failure, and you went on with your day.
But it wasn't a failure. It was a huge success because its purpose was to test.
In other words, fail fast and learn. Iterate. That is what disruptive companies do. They know that failure is a chance to learn.
And as we talked about on Tesla Time News, SpaceX already has over 1,000 discrete changes baked into their next Starship and Super Heavy booster.
That's right. SpaceX doesn't wait to build the next set of ships. They are constantly building and iterating.
So investors, I want you to put on your open mind caps for a couple of minutes because we're going to tell you about something that may seem crazy, but it is inevitable.
So we believe that SpaceX will be flying people intercontinentally by the end of this decade.
Well, how can that be? The rocket just blew up.
Well, let's go back to the early days of aviation when kooky inventors like the Wright brothers were testing their cockamamie new aeroplane.
In 1906, the New York Times published an article stating, "The Wrights have no machine which will fly, and they have not flown to any appreciable distance."
Charles K. Hamilton, an American aviator and exhibition pilot, was quoted in 1908 saying, "I do not believe that the Wright brothers have a machine that will carry a man through the air under any circumstances."
If we had told you then that in less than 50 years, the public would be getting into these and flying around between countries, many of you would have said that we were crazy.
So again, adjust your open mind hats, make sure that they're fully on your head. Not only do I believe that SpaceX will be able to fly Starship from, say, LA to Shanghai in well under an hour, I believe they'll be able to do it economically, and therefore, I believe that SpaceX will disrupt the intercontinental air travel market starting at the end of this decade.
Okay, so just to remind everyone, SpaceX started talking about this 5 years ago, but it stands repeating because I think many people either didn't really hear about it or they thought it was just science fiction. The idea is that you can get onto a Starship, it launches into a suborbit, and then it reaches speeds up to 27,000 kilometers an hour, and when it reaches its destination, it lands.
Just like we've seen Falcon 9 do dozens of times flawlessly.
Meaning that you could fly from New York City to Shanghai in 39 minutes.
Now, I know what you're thinking.
Even if this works, it's going to be super expensive.
Gwynne Shotwell, the SpaceX president, said back in 2019 that a flight from Hong Kong to London, which today takes 11 hours and 50 minutes in a jet, would take just 34 minutes on Starship and would cost a little more than an economy class airline flight, but cheaper than a first class ticket.
Sam Dinkins in the Space Review estimated that each Starship flight would cost around $1,055,000 to transport 853 passengers, which equals $1,200 per seat.
So that's 70% propellant, 20% maintenance, and 10% for crew and amortization costs.
Now, I get it. There's a lot of unanswered questions right now.
What would it feel like to be blasted around the world that fast?
I'm sure similar questions were asked when jet travel started.
You mean I'm going to have to get into that tin can and go 600 miles an hour?
What's it going to feel like to go from 30,000 feet to ground in just a few minutes?
What's it going to be like to land going hundreds of miles an hour to zero in just the length of the runway?
What if the pilot can't see because of clouds?
What if the plane gets hit by lightning?
And what if we run out of fuel?
All the questions that new technologies bring with them. They will have to be answered. But I'm just pointing out how incredible and impossible it must have seemed to go from boat travel between continents that took weeks or months to an airplane that took just hours.
And now we're talking about it taking minutes.
But allow your brain to think about how airplanes disrupted so many things.
And now think how Starship intercontinental travel will disrupt again.
So here's your homework. And it's the kind of thing that we do with our investor club on Patreon.
Which, by the way, you can join to not only support the work we do,
but it also gives you access to our weekly Investor Club bonus videos and exclusive live streams with founders and CEOs of disruptive companies so that you can ask questions and hear from amazing people directly. So here's your homework. Allow yourself this week to imagine that we are in the year 2030 and Starship is now flying commercial flights in select markets, let's say London to Hong Kong, New York City to Shanghai, LA to Berlin.
Roughly half an hour to your destination for, let's say, $1,500 a ticket. What will that mean?
What will start to change when this becomes a reality?
The first things that come to mind might be what will happen to traditional airlines? Will they disappear?
Or will there still be a market for somewhat cheaper but way longer flight times? So keep in mind that most airlines' financial models work based on the first class ticket, bringing in most of each flight's revenue.
Are people really going to want to spend $5,000 on a first class ticket for an 11-hour flight when they could spend way less to get there in 40 minutes?
And if I can fly to Tokyo from New York City in under an hour, I'll be able to get so much more work done. Because keep in mind that according to the World Bank, the average length of stay for international tourists is about 7.3 nights. That was back in 2018.
So on a trip with an 11-hour flight, I would have thrown away about 2 days to travel, or about 20% of my trip with just travel time.
With Starship, your travel time would only be about 1%.
So we're talking a major disruption to the $470 billion global airline industry.
So that's 2021 numbers. The global airline industry is estimated to be worth $635 billion in 2030. So
even if Starship only takes a tiny 5% slice of that pie, that's over $31 billion per year.
But let's go deeper. When humans could start traveling faster than boat speeds, what happened to human movement on this planet?
Back in the early 1900s, only the wealthy elite could travel internationally, as it took weeks or months to do so.
It is estimated that less than 1 million people a year were international tourists back then.
According to the World Tourism Organization, the number of international tourist arrivals in 1980 reached around 278 million.
So air travel allowed for about a 300x in tourism.
And it didn't stop.
Well, until COVID hit in 2020.
It reached almost 1.5 billion people traveling internationally in 2019.
Just stop for a second. 1.5 billion people traveled internationally in 2019. The population of this planet is only a little bit bigger than that. That's just amazing. I can't even begin to account for all the changes that has meant for humanity, to have millions of people, billions of people every year moving around the planet culturally, economically, socially.
If we had told you that the Wright brothers' weird little invention would have led to 1.5 billion people moving around the planet internationally every year just 100 years later, and all the changes to humanity that would bring,
you definitely would have said, stay clear of those two guys. They are completely crazy. So look, if you want to get a good grade on your homework, keep imagining what this new technology of Starship intercontinental travel is going to look like.
And comment below what you come up with. What new industries will pop up?
What industries will start to fail? If we as investors get into new disruptive sectors and companies before the rest of the world even knows to look, we can earn really high returns.
And if we can steer clear of sectors that are going to stagnate, we can save ourselves from wasting tons of valuable resources as well.
And remember, you are what makes this channel so special. It's your ideas, your imagination. Share your thoughts and make sure you hit the like button to share this video with more people.
We'll see you next week on Disruptive Investing.